You're listening to the Rent Roll Radio Show with Sterling Chapman. Hey, Rent Roll Radio listeners, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Sterling Chapman, and we're joined today with awesome guy, Mr. Mario Lancioni. He is actually the founder or an owner of Lancioni Holding Companies. Him and his brother have about 100-unit rental property portfolios. He's also into wholesaling and lease option. So he's a little bit all over in property management. So lots of stuff to cover today on the show, and I'm really excited to have him on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Sterling. I'm excited to be on too.
Awesome. Well, can you back up and kind of tell us like how you got into real estate in the first place, how you got interested, and kind of just go over your story with us?
Yeah, totally. So I worked corporate sales for about 10 years, and I guess probably like about year 6 or 7 into my corporate sales job, I just started looking for other opportunities. I don't really come from like a business background or any experience, or just doing sales.
What'd you sell?
I sold office supplies.
Nice.
Yeah. So I worked for a huge company in the Northeast called WB Mason. So we just sold like door-to-door office products to people. So that's what I sold. And it was like kind of low-hanging fruit, to be honest with you. It was pretty easy to do for me. I just wanted a challenge. So I think, my brother came up with the idea. He saw a triplex, and he just thought about the numbers, and he said, if we got an FHA mortgage on it, we split it, we'd only have to put down like $7,000. So we would split it like $3,500 each. And the cash flow numbers were like,
you can do an FHA mortgage with 2 people.
So it was under his name. So I guess we had a lot of trust, because traditionally, if it's somebody else, you'll get a LLC operating agreement.
Well,
and we didn't.
Yeah.
And my brother, and I guess some people don't have great relationships with family, but so with my brother, we didn't even know anything about like setting up a structure. It was just like, buy it in your name. We know you can get it for 3.5% down, and I'll just pony up money on the back end, and it'll just be in his name. So we did that project, and we just saw the value of the cash flow. I think we cash flow to this day, it was like over $2,000 a month in net like profit per month. I guess the next thing was we snowballed into another. I put a duplex under my name. That was an FHA. We started like thinking like, oh, this is so easy. We were fortunate enough to have good tenants, thank God, because it could have probably been a terrible experience if the tenants weren't good and paying rent on time. So it just got us excited. After having a duplex and a triplex, we were excited, and we tried to scale, but we didn't know how to scale. So we did the model of like putting 25% down after a couple more homes. And I remember like 2018, we talked about. It wasn't called a BRRRR then, because BRRRR wasn't like a big name of the BRRRR strategy. So we just talked about like refinancing our money out. We're like, well, if we could do this, we only have to leave like $10,000 into the deal. So we bought them in cash, and then we refinanced it. And then after we started seeing a lot of the HUD documents come back, we started tweaking our numbers of knowing truly what like a good home purchase price was, a good construction number, and then what the actual value of the home was. So we were able to essentially get the homes for free. So when we were burning the properties, we really were able to identify it after like 4 or 5 times. I would say we kind of screwed it up. We probably screwed a couple up because we miscalculated the construction. We miscalculated the appraisal value because we did our own appraisals. But after like 4 or 5 of those little speed bumps, we got it down. We understood how the BRRRRs worked, how to get all our money out. When a bank tells you 75% loan to value, they're really giving you back 65% loan to value. That's the way I calculate it. So you're leaving 10% on the table on closing costs.
Closing costs and stuff.
Mm-hmm. So when we were calculating our brain, like we're going to get an example is like we're going to get $90,000, and then our mortgage is going to be $1,000 per month. We didn't factor in. It's maybe it might be 75% when you run an ARV, quick math, but you're not factoring in all the fees and expenses that it comes to it. So when you're actually getting back, it's typically 10% less on the BRRRR. So we started saying, all right, we have to get the properties even cheaper. We have to get our construction costs even cheaper. So those were 2 variables that we were able to nail down.
When you BRRRR'd it, how did you calculate the cash flow, and how did that work out for you? So, and let me explain. So
Sure.
When I first started, buying properties, I was like, oh, well, I got this house and the mortgage is mortgage principal and interest and insurance and taxes are $560 a month, and I got it rented for $1060. I'm cash flowing $500. But when you really factor in like the vacancy and the repairs and all of that, like I had on that one house that I like was always bragging that I got 500 a month cash flow on. Like that's cool. But after owning it for a year, I had a sewer line under the slab that was like a 70-year-old like cast iron line, and it just had broken over time, and I had to jack up all the concrete and replace it, and that was like a $6,000 deal, and that wiped out everything I was supposed to. I've made every mistake in the book. I always say, like, if I ever write a book, it's going to be how I got rich buying bad deals.
Dude, Sterling, you know, it's funny. I wish I could go over everything, but like that's one thing we do because we've had so many terracotta lines, like you say, collapse on us. So what we do now is we get a camera scope and we send it down the sewer line to see if it's broken. Because most homes that we buy, and it's probably the same as you, they've been sitting vacant for a year or two. So there's so much calcium buildup. Those sewer lines are a little beat up. So a lot of times those things just deteriorate. So we sent a scope down with a camera in it to see if the sewer line's in shape. Because if you don't factor that in, say it is broken, you have to make sure you have at least, like you said, $7,000-8,000. Because then if we have to rip up concrete and then pour new concrete, that's another cost. So that stuff, dude, I've had three times happen to me. I actually have one right now. It happened to me right as we speak. No, when you said it, I smiled because it's happened to me as we speak today. Yeah.
I always take a picture of it and put it on Facebook and goes, if anybody was wondering what an $8,000 hole looks like. So you said terracotta. From my understanding, terracotta's a bit older. They hadn't used that in quite a while. I'm guessing in Jersey, a lot of the properties have been there a while. What's the average age of the house that y'all are buying?
Sometimes we'll get historic homes, and like maybe the oldest home we have is like 1850. It's a cool historic home in Woodbury, New Jersey, where our home office is. So it's not far from here. Thank God, knock on wood, that there's nothing wrong with that terracotta line, but that's really the years that we're talking. Some of these homes are dated back from like the mid 1800s. Most of them are in the 1920s, 30s. We'd be lucky if we can get some in like the 60s. So, but our portfolio is kind of all over the place, to be honest. I mean, a lot of our single families, they could be probably as early as the 70s, but then mostly it's like in the 20s. In one specific town, we get a lot of like 1920 type of homes. We'll see old newspapers underneath the old flooring, and I have a couple of the clippings saved there. It's so cool. Nice. Some of the stuff I find in those homes. So yeah, they're older. Yeah.
I guess that's what you have in that type of area, and you make do and you adjust the numbers for it.
Yeah.
What does your typical cash flow look like on these properties when you're done? And like how do you kind of calculate it?
I would say I always go very conservative. So I think on average probably $250 cash flow due to property management. We have our own in-house property management. So we have service calls. So I think a lot of times, like you said, sometimes service calls can knock numbers way out of whack. So we'll always put cushion aside every month just to have like almost like an escrow account of funds just for maintenance and repairs. Because if we don't
what percentage do you do that? Do you have how do you do that?
Actually, so we were trying to do like a 7% number, but I felt like it was too low. So we just started doing like flat numbers. Like if their cash flow was good, I'd say $120 or $100. So we don't have like truthfully a set formula. It's just more, if I didn't like the percentage, I'm like, inch it up a little bit just for a cushion, you know?
Yeah. How long did it take? You have 100 units now. How long did it take you to get there?
Let's just say 5 years. 5 years.
And how long before it really started like gelling that you really felt like you were making decent money on the cash flow?
I would say in 2018, like the end of 18, because that's when it put me in a position where the cash flow that we were making started making sense. Like my brother and I, it's funny, we sold office supplies, but we were making like pro athlete money. I mean, they signed us to a crazy contract because we were going to leave and go to a competitor. So we had 2 years left on the contract. We were both making about $250,000 a year. So we were making some serious money. We were probably making under $100K, I'd say, between cash flow and everything together. And we were just so unhappy. I can't explain it, that the money didn't matter. We're like, let's just take a gamble on ourselves and just like do this. We love it. We basically left for less money and said, let's just take a risk because we know the business. We know it's going to be good. We have all the right contractors and all the right investors. Because at the time we had a lot of investors too, that we just took a leap of faith and we did it. But if you look at it, you're like, that's a stupid decision because we made so much money. We had 2 years left of guaranteed money, guaranteed, but we didn't care.
So
We didn't care.
let me ask you this: how did the banks react to your walking away from your big salary?
I wanted to answer a question that you answered before, but it's kind of the same situation with the bank. That's how they come into play. We dealt with a warehouse lender, they call them. So they're almost like a bank that gets private money. So they have private money investors that mortgage a lot of these mortgages to us. So they don't show up on your traditional like credit score. Like if you pull our houses up, you can't find them if you ran our credit. Their requirement was really if you had at least 5 rental properties and you had over a 700 credit score. If you're an existing, say, investor that doesn't have a quote unquote job. If you have like, say I have an investor that comes in and a specific month, his credit score is better than mine, we'll run his credit score because he has like a 750, 780. They'll ask him for at least his like last 2 month statements of what he makes, like his proof of income. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times we would leverage if my credit was a little dinged up from like over leveraging on a flip, we'll use my partners to refinance those houses. So that was the balancing act we had was like, as long as we had good credit when we left and we obviously already had the credibility from the rentals, they were going to refinance the properties for us. Another thing that we did where I don't know if most people do this. I thought this was like brilliant at the time that we did was we went into homes and we're like, how are we coming up with these renovation numbers and knowing what the mortgage actually is? So we asked the bank that we did so many refis with, he's like, why don't I run term sheets for you? And I asked him, what's a term sheet? He's like, a term sheet's basically, you tell me what the ARV is going to be. You tell me what the monthly rental income in the market's going to be, and I'll spit you back what you're going to get on the refi and and basically the mortgage numbers. So in the beginning, before I ever bought a house, I always asked him for a term sheet. So it showed me the true number of what I was getting back, like plus or minus, say $1,000, you know?
Sure.
So if he's saying I'm giving you 75% LTV, Mario, he was showing me pretty like a guesstimate of what I was netting, what my mortgage would be. So it actually allowed me to do a lot of quick math on some homes. If anybody does it after like 10 times, you'll kind of know automatically. Like if you walk a house, you'll start formulating your mind like, oh, this is what they'll give me back based on the terms they've done in the past.
Yeah. I feel like so many of my deals are so like identical that
really
I know what the term. Well, when you use the same bank over and over, again, you can just kind of like calculate that in your head. But you know what I did start doing recently was like I noticed that like the same appraisers would show up over and over again. All the small
good
local
point.
Banks in the area.
Very good point. Yep.
So I got to where when I found like a wholesaler would send me a house I wanted to buy, send it to the appraisers that appraised my previous stuff and say, hey, what would you think the ARV of this would be? And that helped me a lot because like if they get pulled, they can't say like it's any lower than they initially told me it would be.
That's true. Yeah, you're in a good position. Yeah.
Yeah. So and that's it's worked out really well there.
That's awesome. I was going to ask you, I know one thing for new investors, if they ever had this issue, because I've had this as an appraisal where I self-appraised it, style of homes. I remember an appraiser told me like one time I miscalculated by like 30 grand, the ARV. And I called the lady and I asked her, I said, how was I off? She's like, well, Mario, you're comping a Cape Cod versus a Victorian. So like, even though the square footage is there, the bedroom size is there, the style is totally off. And I didn't know that.
I've never heard of that. That sounds like maybe something that happens more in Jersey than in South Louisiana.
Yeah. But I guess for anyone to be warned, you know, some of that stuff could happen to them. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I know that like they have certain like little puts and takes. I've tried comping a house that's on a slab to a house that's pier and beam, and they're like, nah, it doesn't really work that way. It's not apples.
I see.
There's definitely like snags that you learn along the way.
Yeah.
But as I see the appraisers over and over again, like I just really like sending it to them.
That's smart. Yep.
I would like to hear some more about the other things that you got into. So you started with the rentals, and I'm guessing the whole time you were in corporate America being a sales guy, which I came from the same background, so I never understand exactly where you're coming from. you were just accumulating the rentals, and then when you left, you figured it was time to start like sprinkling in a little more active income, and that's kind of
Yeah.
where you got into the wholesaling and the flipping, I assume. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So the flipping, I still do time to time. It's probably predicated on the wholesaling piece, but wholesaling really stemmed here because it was a lot of the market was drying up on the MLS. So all of my deals, the rental deals, there might be one wholesale deal I acquired along the way of those 100. Then I started to find it was super tight to get homes on the MLS. And my brother, again, he always leads the charge. He's younger than me too. So he led the charge on trying to wholesale. I came up with a crazy idea a year ago, which was a terrible idea, to start a construction company. So we actually kind of within a week, I started a construction company with a bunch of guys, like ragtag guys, because I knew the business, and then my brother started wholesaling, and we both had bumps and bruises, but his bumps and bruises, he made money. For me, I lost like a ton of money, and I got out of it, but it was ugly. It was ugly, to be honest. It was ugly. So, but then I was poking my head over there, asking like, how's it going? He's like, dude, we have to do a flip. We'll make 40,000 in like 6 months. And he's like, I can make a quick like $8,000 in like a month or less. And I didn't really do anything hard. He's like, he's like, you already know sales because it's your past. We're just going directly to the homeowner and we're connecting the dots. All we're doing is connecting the dots to someone like you or I. And the numbers still work. It's just we're making a small cut on it. And like a finder's fee, he called it. He didn't even call it a wholesale fee. He just said it was a finder's fee. I'm like, that sounds pretty cool, man. Could you teach me? I was like, because I need some money, because the construction thing was like a disaster. And he was like, dude, just be patient for about a month. He told me like, he's like, download PropStream, use that. It's kind of like you can, like we talk about ARVs. He's like, it's a good system where you can pull up people's like information. It actually helps you negotiate using the PropStream website. He's like, so spend time about a week YouTubing it and then understand it. And then we'll talk about how we go about extracting business. And he taught me about skip tracing. And then he just gave me a little script. Like it was a stupid little script of like intro, find out the condition. And then he asked me about motivation and like price. And then like, there was really no training. He just said like, this is kind of how you would want to talk to a seller. And I started doing it. And, in the beginning, you just throw up on yourself and do stupid stuff. But then like the natural sales instincts came back, and I enjoy sales. So like it started becoming fun, like wholesaling. Yeah. And I started knocking down a bunch of deals. I mean, I couldn't even tell you. I know over like 3 months, I made about 60 grand in wholesaling. And I kind of like was stumbling and fumbling, dude. Like I didn't do anything crazy.
How are you finding the deals? Like, are you doing bandit signs? Are you like robocalling, or where are you getting the leads from?
So it's funny. It's my brother's approach. He's a little more introverted than me, so he does text campaigns. Mm-hmm. I was trying the text campaigns, but I felt when I left the day, I wasn't being productive. Like me texting a million people on batch leads, it didn't make sense. So I'm like, I have to call people. All texting does is avoids the intro. I'm like, all texting does is this lets me know if they're interested or not interested. So I was like, let me hand dial. So I started hand dialing, and that was a pain in the ass. So I was like, is there a system that can like auto call people? So I use this software called Mojo Dialer. Mm-hmm. So it automatically just calls people, and it's amazing. You can make like 500 phone calls in a day by using Mojo Dialer. And you'd be surprised if you get on the phone with people that are motivated. Like I said, it's usually motivated sellers or a distressed property owner. That's all you really are trying to identify. So if someone says no, I just either get off the phone or I ask them, do you have any other properties you're interested in selling? Sometimes you'd be surprised. They're like, oh, I didn't think about this property, but I'm interested in selling that. So I picked up some no's. When people said no, I've actually picked up a couple wholesale deals by asking that question of like, do you have any other properties you're interested in selling? And they're like, you know what? There's a property I have a lien on for like $8,000. And I picked that up, But surprisingly, wholesaling is actually not as hard as people think, especially if you have a sales experience. I guess if you're used to rejection, someone like you or I, it would be easier to do, truthfully.
So walk us through, like, what is a conversation like that? How does that sound?
So it sounds like if I call, I'll say, hi, is Sterling there? And then you'll say, hi. Yeah. I was like, yeah, my name's Mario. I'm a local real estate investor. I'm just calling to see if you're interested in selling your property. It could go one of two directions, yes or no, or what the hell, how'd you get my number? And then from there, if they're like, yeah, well, I have a bunch of people calling me. I'm not interested in selling it. I'm not interested in getting lowballed. I usually combat it with saying, you might have gotten lowballed in the past, but I also, if you're open to terms, we can come up with a creative deal of like you being the bank, and I can essentially, take over the property and you can mortgage it to me. So I'll do like a seller finance deals or subject
Does that
to.
work
So
a lot?
yes and no. I like giving options. So the best way to close people to me is if you give them like a cash option, a listing option. I have a real estate agent in my office. So I always say, listen, I can give you a cash option, which has to work for me. I have to truthfully make a profit. The second option could be a realtor in-house. I can list it for you and try to get the price you want. And the third option could be terms. It could be based on, if you really, really want 120, I can give you 120, but it has to be on terms. That's the only way this deal can work. So I see that I close more deals by giving options than just being a cash guy.
And what option do they usually always choose?
So if you can steer it correctly, they will take the cash surprisingly. Because you break down like you or I, like explaining, well, if you put it on the market, you'll get, say, 70. And you're just being honest. You're like, then, you have to factor in, it's a limited pool of buyers and blah, 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 fees. Yeah. So it kind of punches out the same number. Typically, you can educate them that way. You don't go into convincing people. I like sharing all the options. And if it works for them and me, then it's a good situation. If it doesn't work for them, then it's not going to benefit me. Yeah. So, but I thought that's like kind of the best like passive approach of being like helpful too. There's some people that like are older. I have a guy that is so old. He's like, I just want a trailer. I said, why don't we do this? Because he had so many liens. I said, let me buy you a trailer or find you something like a mobile home park, and then I can get you a mobile home in exchange for your house. And he's open to it, but I have to find now. It's on my end to find that. That's kind of hard right now. So,
right.
But he put it under contract with me. I said, listen, give me 45 days. We'll put it under contract. So like I have first rights and like another wholesaler can't take it. But by me making it like being of help, I think it helps me more than another wholesaler because they're looking at it from one spectrum. Like I got to make a sale. So if you can look at problem solving or being creative, it helps,
So how long has it been since you quit your corporate job?
2 years ago.
Have you gotten to the point where you replaced that income that you lost?
I'd say no, because that construction company beat me up bad, man. I wish I could tell you yes. I'd lie if I told you that.
I entertained the construction company idea. I didn't take it as far as you. What I really entertained longer was the property management company, and I wanted to manage other people's properties, and I was going to have this big property.
Yeah.
And it turns out I'm just a terrible property manager. I didn't really have any business managing my own properties.
Yep, I know.
I was just telling the last girl I was interviewing on the last show.
Yeah.
When I turned my properties over to property management, I called everybody I knew, and I told them I felt like I bought a shiny new car. Like I was that excited to not. And the guys that manage it are good friends of mine. And that was like, there was a few things that held me back from doing it for a long time. One is the cost. And I was just looking at like how much.
Yep.
And the other thing was like, it was a trust issue because I bought so many properties that were in such disarray because of crap property management companies. I just, like, I felt like I was going to be spending a bunch of money to pay somebody to do stuff worse than I would have done it.
Exactly. I agree.
And then finally, like, some friends of mine who own 100 houses on the other side of town, they agreed to take it over, and I trust them, and they do a way better job. They have better systems. They're better at fixing stuff. I've spent a ton of money in maintenance repairs over the last several months with them, but I wouldn't have fixed it because I didn't know how to fix it. But if they wouldn't have fixed it, that stuff would have like edged on and lingered. Caught up. It would have lingered and it would have gotten worse and would have caught up with me in the long run. So it's a painful season I'm currently going through, like getting past all that deferred maintenance. Yeah. But I'm glad it's getting done, and I feel like there's going to be a light at the end of the tunnel on that.
There will be, and that's where over the past like 5 years, I've felt a lot of the pain points of being a property. Like self-property manager. And I created systems, so to speak, of people in-house. But a lot of times when you get people in property management roles, they may not know construction or simple fixes and who the right handyman is. So they cost you a ton of money by trying to explain it to them and training them. So like I've tried to even hire people with experience and it still doesn't go well. So like, I guess I haven't had a lot of luck with property management, truthfully, even in-house managing. And that's why I told my brother, I'm like, dude, I'd rather present lease-to-own options because then I can flip the script. And if they actually give me a sizable deposit towards the property, we'll still be collecting rent in a lease-to-own like we're landlords, but we're not owners anymore. And I just told him, I was like, I want to get out of the ownership standpoint of being a property manager. I guess to your point, it costs me a lot of money. It's a lot of coordinating, a lot of headaches. And I don't know. I'm over it. I'm over it. But I thought lease-to-own options, a lot of times if I can pick them up through wholesale deals, as I mentioned before we jumped on the radio, like of just sandwich leasing them. Like if someone is willing to give me a seller finance deal or subject to, I just connect them with one of my lease-to-own people that are pre-qualified, and I just connect the dots and put them into the same position. So I'm in the position right now of building out that back end, because the hardest part for me is not getting or picking up the seller finance or for sale by owner deals. It's getting legitimately qualified lease-to-own candidates. The key is getting a really amazing mortgage lender. You need someone like that. And I have that person. They're basically going to run their information similar to like how we would with a tenant, their income level. They've really scrubbed, though, all their financials, make sure that they will be in a position in, say, a year or two out to actually buy the property. And that's how they'll help me connect it with the lease-to-own option. I'll do a closing, but it's going to be a closing with a real estate attorney versus a traditional closing at a title company. So it feels a little more serious, and it's also a real estate attorney who handles it. So that's the back end piece. I think the front end piece is actually easy to make. It's just connecting the lease-to-own people. And you actually can make bandit signs with it. So I'm going to do like lease-to-own bandit signs. Like you'll see a million bandit signs for we buy houses in cash, but you don't see a lot of lease-to-own bandit signs, you know?
Yeah, I've seen a few, but you're right. You see, it's not nearly the ratio that you see. We buy houses cash now.
Yeah.
So what would you do differently if you could like go back? Would you, or what advice do you have for anybody else that's looking to get started?
I don't know. I'm a person like I get bored quickly, and I'm a big idea guy. So I would say try to control your enthusiasm of like creating all these businesses inside real estate, because you can.
Yeah.
And it could bankrupt you. Like for me, I'm so thankful it didn't put me in that position with the construction company, but I could have put myself in a bad spot of just like if I hired, say, project managers and I thought they were doing the right thing. And if you don't have a real good pulse on certain things, operations could fall apart. So I say just kind of stay in a lane for a really long period of time. Make sure you do it well instead of exiting it, and just stay true to that, because it's going to be more beneficial than just jumping off into like a deep end. I think when I did wholesaling and lease-to-own, it didn't make me feel like I was so far off the spectrum of what I was comfortable in, you know?
Right.
Construction, I don't know how to swing a hammer, but I was like, oh, I trust me, I'll reinvent the business. And it was nuts, dude. And it was, but that's just my word. Like advice is like, if you're not like really an expert on that space or don't know too much, I wouldn't just throw all the chips into it and do it. And I did that. And it can hurt you. It really can hurt you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I want to hop over to our radio round real quick and just give our listeners a chance to get to know you a little bit better.
Cool.
3 questions. The first question we have is, what's your favorite book?
Okay. So I like real estate books, but this book helped change my life. My mom passed away several years ago, and there's a book by Eckhart Tolle called The Power of Now. And I think what it helped me with was being more present instead of always like thinking about the next thing or thinking about the past. It really keeps you like engaged in the moment. And I think it helped me really transform my business by being like dialed in. Like if we're in the interview, I'm not texting somebody, like so I think that book is so powerful, explaining to you like being present, and it gets real spiritual, but it's an unbelievable read. The Power of Now. It's on Oprah, like loves it. Yeah,
I've heard of that. I think I heard about it on Oprah. I'm definitely going to check it. It's been on my list for a long time.
You'll love it.
Never sit still. What's your favorite quote?
My favorite quote, and I don't know who said this quote. It's the fortune's in the follow-up. So if you're in sales, I remember I've always heard this in my past life was, if you don't follow up with any, like you're never going to make it, or you're not going to make any money. So that's why they always said the fortune's in the follow-up. So I like that quote, and I stand behind that a lot with my guys.
I was preaching that message this morning.
Right. Yeah.
People think people can get hung up calling 1,000 people, but realistically, like the stats on how many touches it takes to make a sale are astronomical. It's like most people buy on like the 7th call. You know what I mean? And
don't you feel that's true though? Being a sales professional, right?
It is. It absolutely is. Mm-hmm. And most people give up after, oh, they told me they don't want it the first time. Like everybody's going to tell you they don't want it the first time.
Everyone. Yeah. Yeah, that's so true.
So how can our listeners find out more about you or get in touch with you?
So I've been really big enjoying TikTok, actually. So
okay. I haven't endeavored over there yet.
Yeah, you know what's funny? I like how they at first I thought it was like taboo or whatever, but as you go on it, it's actually very helpful. If you follow other real estate people, they give like quick to the point, good tips, like sound tips, and I like it. I actually like the platform. Instagram's good, but I've been veering towards like TikTok, and I think my handle. Let me. Where's my phone? I don't think it's my name. I think it's like Motown Estates. Let me just say. Yeah, it's Motown 2122. That's my my handle on TikTok, and I've actually been active on that more than Instagram.
Awesome. What's the one on Instagram? Is it the same name?
It's just my name, Mario Lancioni.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So
hopefully all of our listeners will hop on and start following. I'm gonna have to download TikTok and check you out. I've never even given it a shot.
You know what? You definitely have so much content. You'll see, like, you look at some of my posts that are like simple, and I'll get 100,000 views. And it's like me talking about gutters being like returned, and like they should be. It helps like water come in the basement. So I explain a simple thing that you can do, and I'll get 100,000 like people that view it, and all these followers. It's amazing, dude. It's like the last platform left where you can actually go viral pretty quickly by providing good feedback. Like, you have like the terracotta line thing that you have. Like that's gold to me on TikTok. Like it's a really good topic. I might steal it and put it on there.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but it's good. Like when you talked about it, I'm like, that's a good one, because that's something I think people don't talk about, because me and you have the pain of doing it, and people eat that stuff up. It's great. Yeah.
Well, cool. Yeah. Thanks for joining us today, Mario. I really appreciate it. It was great getting to know you, and I look forward to continuing to follow you on your real estate journey.
You too, Sterling. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Rent Roll Radio Show, brought to you by Crestworth Capital. We hope you enjoyed the show, and if you did, please hit the subscribe button and leave us a rating and review. You can also visit us at crestworthcapital.com or rentrollradio.com, or follow us on Facebook at Rentroll Radio or at Crestworth Capital. If you would like to reach us, feel free to shoot us an email at info@rentrollradio.com or sterling@crestworthcapital.com. We hope you come back next week to join us on some more of our journey. Until then, happy investing.